Hey guys, it's Judy here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've got a whole bunch of plants that need repotting today or potting up today, like some propagation cuttings. So I'm gonna get right into it. Before I do though, I would love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already. I do a whole bunch of plant related videos, indoor plant care, plant hauls, anything plant related. So if you like the sound of that, be sure to subscribe. I'm gonna jump straight into this video because I've got a lot to do. If you guys watched my how to propagate a string of hearts video, you know that I have this whole box of string of heart propagations that I have had growing in here since like midwinter. I've had it in here for a while. Now I've already gone ahead and mixed my soil mix, which I'm going to insert right here, right now, how I did that. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be using to mix my soil today. Bulk of it is going to be that, which is cocoa coir. I bought it in a brick from Bunnings, and I actually used this for my propagation box. I am going to use it as part of my soil medium today because I don't want to waste it, and I'm going to be mixing it with the rest of these. So what I've got here is horticultural charcoal. This is going to help with, it sweetens the soil by absorbing odors and controls disease-causing bacteria. It's great to help with drainage as well. And this is the Osmocote Indoor Plants Premium Soil Mix. It's pretty good as it is, but the reason why I want to actually mix it is I've been finding this stays too wet for too long. So I want to provide it with something that'll help it a bit more better draining, a bit more airy, and a bit more chunky, which is what this Perlite and this Orchid potting mix is going to do. It's going to just give it a little bit more of a chunky feel. And then for some fertilizer, slow release fertilizer, I got some pure worm castings, and I got all of these from Bunnings. So this is what I'm going to be using today to mix my soil. So I never used to mix my own soil because I found that the Osmocote soil mix did a pretty good job, but as I'm getting more and more into my plant collection, I want to be able to provide a bit more of a chunky, airy mix for my plants, just so that they don't stay so wet for so long. This soil mix, unmixed with anything else, is generally pretty good on its own for plants that like, sorry if you can hear that plane, I just gotta keep going. This is generally pretty good for plants that like their soil to stay moist, like calatheas or alocasias. But I am actually going to be repotting a fair chunk of my plants in today's video, so buckle up, this video is going to be really long. So I want to make sure that I'm mixing a really good soil mix for those plants. So I'm going to take some of this. Now I'm really just eyeballing this, guys, like don't ask me for the recipe or percentages or ratios. I don't know. I am eyeballing this. I am making this soil mix like I cook. I don't measure anything. If you ask me for a recipe, I'll give you an ingredients list. I don't use measurements for anything, not unless I absolutely have to. And soil mix is one of those things that you don't absolutely have to. So I'm going to take some of this perlite. This helps with aeration, just helps with making the soil a little bit airy and a little bit light, and it ensures that the soil doesn't get too compact with every watering. I'm going to take some of this horticultural charcoal. I need a pair of scissors for this. Chuck some of that in there. Ooh, that's dusty. That's very dusty. Woo! Don't breathe it in. Then I'm gonna take some of this Orchid Bark mix. I'm just gonna put the whole lot of it in there. And last but not least, I have some worm castings, which I'm actually going to put gloves on before I start mixing, because I probably should be wearing gloves for this, like whether there's worm castings or not. So let's put some of this in there. It looks like just a very fine soil mix. I don't know how much to put in there, but I guess that will do. And let's mix it all together. Just because I can, I'm gonna mix the rest of this cocoa peat into there as well, because like I don't want just a little bit left in the box. It just kind of annoys me, so I don't want that annoying little bit remaining in the box. I'll wash this box out, and then that way I'll have one really big box of ready to use soil mix for whenever I need to repot anything else. But I'm gonna try and get bulk of the plants that I need repotted done in today's video, just so it's done, because I've been putting it off and putting it off because it's such a messy task, as you can see here. I'm gonna put the rest of this perlite in there. Ooh, that's dusty. Whew. Just gonna mix that through, and then I'll be good to go and start repotting all those plant babies. So there we go. You want a soil mix that's quite airy and quite chunky. That looks pretty good. And now we're back and I can start repotting. So I've got it down here because it's too big of a tub to have up here on the table. So I've got a pot right here and I'm just gonna jump straight into it. I know already I'm gonna make like a huge mess doing this. And I'm just gonna have a chat to you guys while I repot. And I asked on a community post and Instagram question sticker thing it was a few months back now, because I've been planning to do this video for a while. Now that it's spring, it's a perfect time to repot. I asked you guys to give me any questions or topics to talk about while I do this video, so it's just not one long boring video of me playing with dirt. One of the things that you guys asked me to talk about is what I do when I take a new plant home and the quarantine process that I do when I bring a new plant home. And I've talked about this extensively in some of my videos, and in more detail I cover it in this video right here. I'll leave it linked up here and in the description box down below, talking about this quarantine process. Look at this, look at these roots. Isn't that so cute? So what I do when I bring my plants home from the shop is first of all, before I buy them, I make sure that they don't have any signs or symptoms of pests or anything remotely that might look like that. Then when I bring it home, I have it separate in another room, separate from all my other plant collection, because I don't know exactly like what is in this plant. Most likely it comes from the growers, which is outside, and they will have some type of pest somewhere somehow. And I just want to make sure I'm not bringing anything into my existing collection. So I have this plant sitting in a separate room. Generally it's my bathroom or my laundry room, because both those spaces still have a decent amount of light. It's still warm and it has a certain level of humidity as well. And I just want to make sure that I'm still providing those things to these brand new plants, even though they are in a state of quarantine. So I leave these plants in that space, whether it's my laundry or bathroom or wherever you decide to put your plants. I leave them in that space for about 3 weeks. And generally when plants come from the nursery or the grow house, they're generally quite well watered, if not to the extent of being overwatered. So I always let the pot dry out, the soil completely dry out before I even do any watering to the plant. Well, depending on where you are and what the room is like and what the weather is like and what the soil mix is like, but I generally leave it in that space for like a week or 2 weeks before I even think about watering it. And then once the soil is dry, then I'll pop that plant in the shower and then give it a really good water, a really good soak through. After I've watered it, I will go ahead and give the whole plant a really good spray down with neem oil. Neem oil, eco oil. Like when I talk about neem oil, I generally use eco oil because it's a lot cheaper and I found it to be pretty effective and it doesn't smell as bad as neem oil does. So I give the whole plant a really super good spray down with neem oil or eco oil. I spray down the over the leaves, the undersides of the leaves. I spray down the stems, and I also spray down the surface of the soil. This will eradicate any pests that might be lingering or any eggs or larvae that might be in the soil of the plant. Even if there aren't any pests in it, this is part of my pest management process. Like I find pest management, pest prevention to be a whole lot easier than a cure. I try and stay on top of it by staying on top of it. You know what I mean? Like instead of just treating for pests when I see that the plants actually have the pests, I just treat them for pests even though I don't see them, and this will help manage it. It's the route of management is so much easier than cure. Once I've sprayed the plant down, then I will let that plant sit in that quarantine space for another 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then when I have checked over the plant and made sure that it doesn't have any signs of pests or gnats or any other little nasties, then I will then integrate that plant into my existing collection. And then they all live happily ever after together. Oh, sometimes they live happily ever after together. It's also really important to let your plants acclimate. I haven't really squished those roots into the soil because I don't want to damage any of those really delicate roots. But they're just kind of sitting on top of the soil there, and I've pressed them down just a tiny little bit. Nature will do the rest. I'm going to keep this pot of soil moist and let nature do its thing, and I might even pop this into a humidity box to give it that little bit of extra boost as it gets used to the soil. And then that's that on that. So that one's done, thank goodness. One down, like 20 more to go. So what was I talking about? Oh, I also let a plant acclimate to its space before I even think about repotting it. The reason why I don't repot a plant straight away after it's come from the grow house or the place where I bought it from is because I need my plant to acclimate to this space before I even think about disturbing the roots. Often plants will come in that peat moss, really wet, heavy soil mix that the grow houses use in bulk because it's just a really cheap alternative to actual proper soil. They grow it in that because it's cheaper. I don't like it, but even though I don't like that peat moss soil mix, I still don't repot my plant straight away because it's a lot more detrimental to disturb a plant straight away and repot it straight away than it is to let it sit in that peat moss growing mix. I don't call it soil mix because it's not soil. So that's why I don't repot my plants straight away when I've bought them. I just want them to acclimate. And often, look at this. This is a Hoya Mathilde, I think. And often I don't repot my plants until I've had them for like a year almost. I've got some of these plants sitting still in the original nursery pot. They're not growing the best that they can, but I would rather wait until the pot is root bound or the plant is quite larger and established before I even think about repotting it. Because disturbing of the roots is probably one of the most detrimental things you could do to a brand new plant, especially if it's still getting used to the space that you're bringing it into. Wow, I probably should have repotted this Hoya like a long time ago because these roots are epic. Just trying to be a bit gentle with the roots there. I don't really want to disturb it. Well, I've already disturbed it. I don't want to destroy them. I don't want to break them because these roots are really delicate. I've had them in this grow box, in this propagation box for like months now. So I'm just gonna lay them on the top of that soil again, let nature do its thing, let the roots find their way. I have like almost 15, 20 cuttings in this one pot. So I think I'm actually going to not do all of them in the one pot, or maybe I could do all of them in the one pot and just have a really, really full Hoya, you know, instead of just having like 2 growth points in the pot. I might have a few. I'll put a few in here. So yeah, that's basically my process of what happens to my plants when I get a new one and bring it home. Thank you to the person who asked that. It was a really good question, actually, a really good question. Something someone else asked is to give my take on what happens when I fall out of love with a plant. Now, this has probably happened more times than I would like to admit. And often when that does happen, it's happened because I've impulse bought a plant. So for example, I kind of love all my plants, but there are some that I'm kind of like less attached to. And I mean, I look around and there are quite a few of those plants. It doesn't mean like I don't like them. It doesn't mean I hate them or anything. It just means that I don't have as much of an attachment to them as some others that I might have. But one of the main reasons why I generally fall out of love with a plant is because maybe it wasn't doing very well in my space. It does happen, like, to the best of us, even when I've tried and done all the right things by it, given it the right light, given it the right amount of water, given it just anything that it really needs to survive, and it's still not surviving. Maybe I just got a dud plant, I don't know, or maybe it was me. But either way, no matter, like, either way, I've fallen out of love with this plant. Not this one, but just this, like, hypothetically speaking, this in, anyway, you know what I mean. So what happens when I fall out of love with a plant is, like, I just kind of let it go. I try not to feel too guilty about it, especially if it's a plant that I've done everything that I possibly could to take care of it. If it's really just not getting with the program or doing what it needs to do, I just try not to feel guilty about it. Maybe it's a plant that's not really well suited to my space. Maybe it doesn't like the atmosphere or the air in my home or the type of water that I have. I don't know. But what my personal process is when I fall out of love with a plant is that I kind of just let it go. I used to feel guilty about it because I would have spent money on that plant. I would have invested time and effort to try and keep it alive and help it thrive. But I used to feel guilty about that. But now I'm just like, can't keep them all, you know? Like, I kind of look at it this way. People buy flowers, right? So you buy a bunch of flowers. If you change the water, how long does it last you? Maybe like, wow, this is really stuck in there. Sorry. Flowers maybe last you maybe like, what, a week, 2 weeks, tops maybe. Plants usually last longer than that. And even when they start to decline, they'll probably hang in there maybe a month. I don't know. That's generally speaking. Maybe your plant declined like a whole lot faster. I don't know. But that's kind of like how long it took for a plant that I had to kind of like decline and fall out of my graces. Kind of just need to learn to be kind to yourself as well, and understanding that look at it this way, it's no different from buying a bunch of flowers, for example. You know what I mean? I think also you need to be okay with letting the plant go and just being like, okay, that's it. I don't need to invest any more time or stress or effort into this plant, and it's okay to throw a plant in the bin. Like, it sounds horrible, but it's okay to do that, especially when your own personal mental health, maybe it wouldn't drive you to the point of having a mental breakdown, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not worth the stress. So anyway, that's as much as I can fit in the top of that. This is a Hoya, and I've got so much more of this Hoya to pot up. I've got another whole container of it. So I'm just gonna keep going, I suppose. I just hope this video isn't too boring. I've had some people say that they don't mind the longer videos, and that's good. I personally don't mind longer videos myself. Like, I like watching the longer ones myself on YouTube. So if you like longer videos, then this is for you. This one's just taken a while because those roots have really like taken off. They're doing really, really well. Look how long those roots are. That's not sphagnum moss. That's like root. That's crazy. That one's done really, really well. Oh, this one didn't quite take off, but I'll put that one in there as well. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process with what happens when I fall out of love with a plant. I hope that kind of makes sense. I have lost plants and I have banished plants outside. And especially when it's something like if the plant has contracted like a really bad case of pests, whether it's spider mites or mealybugs or thrips or whatever, sometimes it's not worth the stress of keeping that plant. I would much rather prefer to get rid of the whole plant altogether than to try and save it and run the risk of having that pest infestation spread to the rest of my plants. So that's kind of my thought process with all that. Wow, this is really stuck in there. Okay, question number 3 is actually quite appropriate right now because it is, when is the right time to pot up plants after propagation, and what is the proper length of roots before potting those propagations up into soil? This is a really good example. You saw how long those roots were. I probably should have potted this up into soil like a month ago. I've had this in here for like 3 months now, I'm pretty sure. So as you can see, I've got this in sphagnum moss, and I'm taking all the sphagnum moss off here so you can see just how long those roots are. That is a decent amount of roots. And I mean, it was fine to leave it in there up until now, especially now that it's spring. Now is the perfect time to repot. But I probably could have already potted this up like a month ago when the roots were really like an inch long. This is like 3 inches long, and that's probably like maybe like a little bit too long, but I mean, it's not a huge deal. It just makes it like a lot harder to pot them up. This is so long. I'm actually going to take some of that soil out and sit the roots in and then backfill it, because I can't press these in because those roots are so long. So whether you've been propagating in water or sphagnum moss or a propagation box with cocoa peat and perlite or perlite, like no matter what propagation medium that you use, generally it's pretty good to pot up your cuttings into soil when the roots are about 1 inch to maybe 2 inches long, or you see that they have some decent root growth right there, which these ones do. So that's really good. It just makes it a lot harder. Like, it's okay to leave it in there until the roots are this long, like what I've done with this, but it just makes it so much harder to pot them up when the roots are this long and they've actually become entangled with each other, and it just makes it a lot harder to pull them out, especially when you want to pull them out without breaking and damaging the roots too much. Because I mean, I say too much because it's inevitable that you are gonna actually break some roots. It's just gonna happen. Okay, so I have like a couple cuttings here that have really short roots, so I'm gonna put them aside, and then with the longer rooted ones, I'm gonna grab those, pop them together like this, and pop them it's kind of fiddly. I'm gonna hold them up like that, and then backfill those roots around. It's kind of awkward, you know, but nature will do its thing. Those roots will find their home. They will find their way. Do you know the way? Does anyone get that reference? Or did I just sound like an idiot just then? I don't play video games, but I've heard it's a meme, all right? Do you know the way? I'm asking these roots if they know the way. They will learn the way. They will know the way eventually. So what I'm gonna do with this is also pop this into a humidity box. I'm going to water these so that the roots have some moisture to drink up and they're not in a shock. And I'm gonna make sure that this is kept warm and humid until those roots can establish themselves into this pot of soil. So there we go. That took me forever. And now I have another one to pot up. So I'm just gonna time lapse through this one because it's just taking me way too long. This looks really messy, but it'll be fine once I watered it and put it through the shower and washed all that soil off the leaves. She'll be right. She'll be fine. Got 2 more cuttings left, and then I'm done with this one. Actually, no, that was 4 more cuttings left. Damn, how many cuttings did I get out of this? took me forever. Now I've got so many others. These other ones probably won't take me as long as those ones did. My light keeps changing. All right, the next one is this Stromanthe. I'm gonna do this big one because it's blocking my light, honestly, and I just need to get it off the table. So what I'm gonna be doing with this Stromanthe is really just upsizing the pot a little bit. So I'm going from this size pot to this. Can you see? It's not like a huge ton bigger. I probably could actually go even like a little bit smaller than this, but this is the only pot that I have available at the moment. But it's going up. Yeah, it's probably, no, it's too big. It's too big. I would rather have it root bound than put it into a pot that's too big. I don't have another pot. All right, what do I do here? All right, let's see how root bound this Stromanthe is. These like to be really root bound. Actually, yeah, now I think I'll go up that pot size. I will go up that pot size, but what I'm not gonna do is disturb those roots too much or at all. I'm really just gonna pop that existing root ball mix into this pot and then backfill it. I have to stand up for this. So there we go. Backfill that and not disturb those roots at all whatsoever. I'm going to let those roots find their way. I'm making a huge mess here. I'm gonna let those roots find their way and not disturb it at all. So I'm just gonna backfill all that space in the pot. And that's it. All right, let's talk about another thing. Number 4 is quite appropriate. I actually had these in a list and I wasn't planning this, but number 4 is how to repot or transplant your plants with minimal shock, with minimal transplant shock, because transplant shock is a thing. You know how sometimes if you repot your plants and after a few days or just like shortly after repotting it, the leaves start to droop, it starts to look really sad and it just looks like it wasn't a good idea to repot it. The way to minimize this transplant shock is what I did just then. Literally take out the plant that you are repotting and put it into a fresh pot of soil. The only time you really need to like disturb the root ball is if it's like so tight and you want to like loosen it up a little bit, and even then just give it like a couple little squeezes to loosen up those roots and then put it in the fresh soil. As you saw then, I didn't touch those roots. I didn't do anything to those roots. It wasn't like super duper root bound, so I know that once I water this, those roots are going to start to branch out on their own and just start to discover the rest of the pot. If I tried to help it, and it would be probably more like disturbing it, and that is what causes the transplant shock. So to minimize transplant shock is to minimize your handling of the roots. That's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. So essentially exactly what I just did with this Stromanthe. Now I'm gonna pop all of these plants in the shower after, like at the end of this video, and give them a really good drink and let them continue to grow. So that's the next one. I'm gonna put this somewhere else. Someone has asked me what are my unpopular plant opinions. Well, I've just recently put a whole new video out there about my unpopular plant opinions, and I had about 11 of them. So if you guys want to go check out that video, I'm going to leave it linked up here and in the description box down below if you do want to check that one out. But one of my unpopular plant opinions is that, just for the sake of this video, I did say it in the other video, but one of my unpopular plant opinions is that I don't like begonias. This is purely opinion, like I have nothing against begonias or the people who love them and collect them, but I personally feel like they look like fancy weeds. I just don't like the look of them. Another thing is I don't like succulents as well. Like, I know I have some succulents like string of hearts, peperomia, but then peperomia aren't my friend either. I don't do well with peperomia at all. Okay, so here's an example of a really super root-bound plant. This is a Tinanthe Grey Star, and One of the signs that you can tell if a plant needs repotting is that if you need to water it constantly. Like there isn't that much soil in the pot that it can retain moisture, and so the pot is like drying out like in record time. I was having to water this plant like once a week, and it would already like the leaves would curl up and show signs of thirst. So that's when I knew like for sure I needed to repot it. So again, I'm not going to disturb those roots. That root ball looks quite healthy. Those roots look like they are still taking off. But what I am gonna do is pull out some of the dead stems at the base of the pot. Here's a really good example of a Tenanthe and how you can actually propagate it. I don't know if you guys can see this. But here is a root, and it's coming up into a leaf right there. And from this leaf, it grows a whole new bundle of plant. Does that make sense? So you can't actually propagate, well, I haven't successfully propagated Tenanthe or Calathea from a cutting, but the way you actually propagate Calathea or Tenanthe is by root separation. So if I wanted to separate this plant, now would be the time to do that. But I don't want to do that because I like my plants big and lush and full. But this is just an example of how the plant reproduces. There's that root there, and it's popped up into the surface, and it's growing a whole new little leaf right there. So that's pretty interesting, I think. So now I'm gonna put this into there. As you can see, I didn't go up a pot size like way big. It was just a little bit bigger. Then I'm gonna let this get root bound, and then maybe this time next year I'll need to repot it again. But this should be good for the next year or so. I need to backfill this. This is such a messy job. I'm literally doing this all by hand because I have a spade or a shovel, but I don't know where it is. So I'm just using my takeout container and my hands. Hands are the best God-given tools that we have. So I'm gonna use them. So just press down. You don't need to be like, you don't have to press the soil down too much, but I just want to make sure that all those air pockets are full. Give it a bit of a tap. Then I'll give it a good shower later on. So that's it. Pretty easy. Made a huge mess. Making a huge mess. I'm gonna have to vacuum again after this. Any other plant parents out there constantly vacuuming because of all the soil on the floor? Like, it's soil, like where does it even come from? You know? Alright, so the next one I'm gonna be repotting is this Alocasia wentii. I'm not actually gonna go a size up in pot, but I do want to change the soil because this soil is actually hydrophobic. What that means is that it's not very well draining. When I put water on the surface of the soil, it kind of just sits there and drains like super slowly, which means that the soil isn't very airy or chunky. So as you can see there, it's like super fine because it's not even like super root bound then. So what I'm gonna do there is disturb that root ball as little as I possibly can, like maybe give it a couple pinches to loosen up some of that soil there. Give it a little tap, little spank, and then just put that straight back in and put some of that fresh soil. The reason why I didn't go up a pot size is because it's not root bound. I just wanted to give it a little bit of healthy, fresh soil, and there we go. Quick, easy, and now that those roots are gonna be able to breathe a lot better and absorb water a lot better as well, since it's not so compact and it's not so fine. You want a chunky soil mix like this one, okay? Next one, this is a green velvet syngonium, and again, I'm not gonna go up a pot size because it's still a fairly small plant, but the reason why I do want to repot it is because it's sitting in that peat moss soil. I mean, it's not even soil, again, it's not soil. But as you can see there, it's got a really decent root system, but I do want to take off that peat moss. It's just yucky. I want to give this baby a fighting chance, like with something good. So I'm going to give it some good soil. However, I'm not going to like pull all of this out of the roots. Again, I want to disturb this as little as possible. So what I'm gonna do is just give it a little shake, take as much of that out as I can without disturbing the root ball, and then top it up with some of that fresh soil. Now I know it's still got some of that peat moss in there, but it's more detrimental to actually try and take it all out than it is to leave that peat moss in there. So I've taken out as much of it as I can. In time, when I pop this up into a larger pot, when I upsize it, those roots will have better soil to grow into. But as it is, this plant is still very, very young. So I want to, like, again, disturb those roots as little as possible. I sound like a broken record here. I've given it some good well-draining soil up the top there. Those roots were actually quite dry, so I need to give this like a really super good drink at the end of this video, just as I will be with all the rest of these plants. I'll be giving it a really super good drink. I'm just taking some of those smaller dead leaves off at the bottom. There we go. It's actually grown so much since I first got it. So cute. I put this into my humidity box. That's why it's taken off. Okay, the next two allocations that I'm going to be repotting is essentially the same deal as the green velvet syngonium. They're currently sitting in the original peat moss mix that I bought them in, and I just want to take as much of that off as I can and give it some better well-draining soil mix to grow in. So another thing that you guys asked me to talk about is other growing mediums, such as leca or mab grow, even semi-hydro. And to be completely honest with you guys, I have not grown in any of these mediums that I have just mentioned. I don't have any experience with any of them. I've seen like amazing results that many different people have had with these different growing mediums, but I personally haven't really tried any of them, so I don't really have any like opinions on them because I haven't had any experience with them. For me personally though, I don't really know if I want to grow my plants in leca. I think leca is a growing medium. It's like little clay balls. People use that so that the plant doesn't get overwatered. But as it is, overwatering isn't really an issue that I have anyway, because my time and attention is spread so super thin. I tend to underwater my plants, if anything, really. So I don't really think I need to have a growing medium that helps me not overwater my plants. I'm pretty sure that leca has like other benefits to them other than the overwatering thing, but that's the only one that I really know about it. Like I said, I don't have any experience with it, and I don't really have an opinion on it, I guess. When it comes to semi-hydro or hydro itself, I don't think I would really want to do that. Like, I like having my plants grow in soil. Like, plants come from that. That's where they are natively and naturally grown from. So I don't really want to, oh, this is just falling apart. I'm not really being rough with it. It's because I just watered it the other day, and so a lot of it is just falling off quite easily, but I'm not gonna disturb that anymore. Yeah, so I like to have my plants in soil. Maybe it's more traditional, maybe it's just more like, I don't know, that's where plants natively come from, and I don't really want to try any other method. Maybe not right now, I guess, but like, I'm not opposed to doing it in the future if I had to, or if I had the passion for it, but right now I'm pretty happy with my soil. I didn't used to mix my soil before, like you guys saw. Like, I was pretty happy, and my plants were pretty happy with just growing in the Osmocote indoor plant soil mix, which is what I used for pretty much everything. And my plants were pretty happy in that, but I've been finding that that soil mix stays too wet for too long for a lot of my plants. It's okay for the plants that like their soil to stay moist, like the Calathea or the Alocasia, but as a general rule, it's better to let your soil dry out completely between waterings. And that's why I wanted to make my own soil mix today. My own soil mix today, is because that one just stayed too wet for too long, and I just wanted the experience of mixing my own soil, I suppose. There are definitely benefits to mixing your own soil mix. with the not a solution, with the combination of materials that I used before. And if you're just starting out in plants, like, it's okay to just use that soil mix as it comes. You don't have to feel the pressure. You don't have to make your own soil mix. You don't have to. Your plants will still grow and survive, as many of these do. Like, a lot of these are still sitting in the original soil I bought them in, or an Osmocote indoor plant soil mix. It's fine. They'll be fine. You'll be fine. So yeah, with this silver satin or silvery Ann, I actually just changed the soil. I didn't upsize it because the roots were not bound. So I just changed it out of that peat moss mix and just transplanted it into some of this better, well-draining growing medium. So there we go. I've got 3 more questions and 3 more plants to repot, so let me pace myself. The next question is how to ensure plant soil mixes are free of gnats and their eggs. Well, this green dragontail epipremnum is not root bound at all, as you can see, but it was sitting in that peat moss soil, peat moss mix. So I'm just going to change the soil into this. I just repeat myself 1,000 times. So how do you ensure that soil mixes that you buy from the nursery or Bunnings or wherever are free of gnats? Well, I don't actually really know. Like, unless you're opening the bag of soil mix. Ew, what is this? Unless you're actually opening up the bag of soil mix and making sure that there aren't any gnats flying out of it, I guess there's no way to really know before you purchase it. But when you do purchase it, like, I've heard of this method of sterilization of the soil, people putting soil in the oven and then baking it or microwaving it to make sure that there are no eggs, to make sure that any eggs like existing in the soil are dead. But like, I'm not quite sure about that. I don't know, I've never done that. I've never had to do that. I have bought a bag of soil mix before that had gnats and flies in it, and I used it, and that just created such an infestation in my house, and I had to go through and repot everything again. But and I saw the flies in the soil, and this was like way early on in my plant journey. Like, I thought it was just like natural insects in the soil and it was fine, and I used it anyway. But if you see those flies in the soil, I mean, don't use it, for one. I would probably return it to the shop and buy a fresh bag. And I must say, like, the Osmocote indoor plant soil mix that I used, I've never had a bag with gnats in it. Yeah, I've never had an issue with it. Besides that first initial bag, I never really had any issues after that. But yeah, I guess that's my advice, is if you see it has gnats in it, it will present themselves by flying out of the bag, and just don't use it, return it and buy a fresh bag. Also, that very first bag that I talked about that had gnats in it, I bought the cheapest bag of soil I could find. Maybe do invest in some more premium soil mix, I guess, like a better quality soil mix. So that's just another tip there. But yeah, other than just looking at the soil and making sure it doesn't have gnats in it, I don't know what to tell you. Generally, you will see if it has it, because you will see the larvae, you will see the gnats flying out of the bag, so they will present themselves. There's not really any chance of you not knowing they were there and then using it and then having gnats in it. Does that make sense? I hope so. Another question I've gotten was, can I recommend some must-haves from Bunnings for new plant parents? And I'm not entirely sure if this person meant must-haves plants-wise or must-haves plant tools-wise. But because I have my own indoor plant service, online shop, I'm not gonna really recommend anyone to purchase plants from Bunnings, because I would recommend you buy it from the small businesses that are definitely around you selling indoor plants. Purchase from small business, guys. Like, I never realized just how important this statement was until I became a small business myself. So plants wise, purchase from small local businesses around you. It's like giving a gift twice. You give one to yourself and you give one to the small business. Support small local business. So plants wise, support small local business. But from Bunnings, like tools wise, I would recommend getting a water meter. Moisture meters were one of my best friends when I first started out in plant parenting. They helped me determine whether or not I needed to water a plant or to not water a plant, because overwatering is one of the main #1 killers of indoor plants for new plant parents. Invest in a moisture meter. The other thing I would say is eco oil, neem oil. These are one of the things, those are things that every plant parent needs, whether you are a beginner or not a beginner. You need some type of pest management spray or thing, and everyone needs that. So yeah, definitely recommend those things. You can also get your soil mix from Bunnings, you know, like what I showed in the beginning of this video, making that soil mix up. I got all those products from Bunnings. And you can too. So yeah, I guess those are the things that I would recommend you get from Bunnings. I don't really know much else how to answer that question, really. The reason why I didn't actually upsize this plant is because it wasn't root bound, so it didn't need to be upsized. I just needed to change the soil. The soil in that one was pretty old and pretty tired, so I'm just gonna give it a little bit of this brand new fresh soil and give it a really good drink. I'm seeing in a lot of my plants that my underwatering thing is actually becoming an issue, because a lot of the roots in a lot of these plants were actually like really dry. So I need to be better at watering my plants, because if you, like, just as overwatering is detrimental to your plants, so is underwatering. Like the roots will actually desiccate and just dry and go brittle, and yeah, the plant won't like it. It is, however, easier to bring a plant back from underwatering than it is to bring it back from overwatering. So there's that. So I suppose it's better that I underwater than overwater, but it's better to just water properly as needed. Okay, I have one more question. One more question? Anyway, I've lost count. This mess is huge. Anyway, I've got one more question and one more plant to repot here. This is all the old soil. I'm gonna throw this in my green bin. Now, this pot here is a Xanadu philodendron, and it's not actually root bound, I don't think. Let's pull it up and have a look. But I know that it needs new soil because it is very tired. This soil is very tired. Ooh. And make a mess like I haven't already. Oh, it's actually quite root bound. Look at that. I need a bigger pot. I don't have a bigger pot. All right, what I'm gonna do is, it's not because, well, it's partially because I don't have a bigger pot, but this plant could probably still sit in its original pot for like a little bit longer, but I do want to give it some fresh soil. So I'm just gonna try and give it a little bit of a pinch just up the top here. It's not quite root bound at the top, so I'm gonna take off some of this soil at the top and replenish that with the fresh stuff. It's very hard. The soil is actually very, very hard and compact. Wow, this Xanadu gives a really strange smell. I can't tell if fragrant or not, but it has a smell. Like it's the plant smell, because I always smell it every time I trim leaves off. But does anyone else know that smell I'm talking about? Do you have a Xanadu philodendron? Let me know, but it's really strong and it actually makes me want to throw up. All right, I'm not gonna disturb that anymore. I'm gonna put that back in there and just put some fresh soil in at the top. And the last question that I have is actually a question that I have for you guys. And it's whether or not I'm putting it out to you because I wanna know, I just wanna know what kind of interest there would be out there for this. But would you personally be interested in like hiring a repotting service? Some people don't like repotting, some people find it therapeutic, some people enjoy it, and I know some other people don't. But would you personally, just trying to gauge what kind of interest there would be out there for this, would you personally engage a repotting service? So for example, it's basically what it's called. Would you give your plants to someone to repot? If you know that they're gonna use like a good soil mix, take care of your plant, make sure it's like well taken care of and given the proper care. Like, put it this way, would you give your plants to me to repot? Let's put it that way. That's a good way to put it, right? Because that's kind of like what I'm putting the question out there for, to gauge the interest. If you're in Australia, of course. Of course, I can't provide this service to anyone else around the world, unfortunately. But if you're within Bendigo, which is where I'm running my business from, would you give your plants to me to repot? There we go. That's the question. All right. Now I've made like a huge mess. I'm going to pop these plants in the shower, give them a really, really good drink, a really good soak, and I'm also going to give them a bit of a feed. So I'm not going to give them a very strong dilution of fertilizer, but I will give them just a little bit of Thrive after I finish showering them and washing off all the dust and the soil off these leaves. Then I'll give them a little bit of that Thrive in a watering can going after. I'm going to clean up this mess and call it a day. This video is probably really super long. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please excuse this incredible monster of a mess that I've just made. I hope you found this video fun to watch, informational and helpful. If I didn't answer your question, I probably missed it. I do my best to try and catch all the questions, but if I missed it, I'm sorry. Please do leave that question again in the description box down below, or in the comments down below. I'm quite delirious. I'm so hungry right now. I haven't eaten yet today. Anyway, if I missed your question, leave it in the comments. I will answer them in another video. I'm gonna be doing another video answering the 20 most asked questions, and that one's coming up very soon. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that video. I'm gonna clean this mess up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you've chosen to spend your time here with me today. Please like the video if you did, subscribe if you haven't, and I shall see you guys in my next video. Bye! But if you guys want to hear that, then I will talk about it. I need to put my phone on silent, otherwise I will get distracted. My hands are so dirty. All right, this mess is stressing me out. I'll give these plants a shower now.